I didn't know how long I had been driving. The rain had started to pick up again, but I barely noticed. The windshield wipers swished mechanically, rhythmic and mind-numbing. I was spiraling, my thoughts bouncing off each other, none of them making sense. I kept seeing her face, the way she'd looked at me before she hung up that night, like she was saying goodbye without even knowing it. I didn't know where I was going. I couldn't go home, not like this, not after hearing that conversation. So, I drove. Eventually my eyes caught a flickering neon sign up ahead. Highland Motor Inn. The paint was chipped, the lights barely staying on. The kind of place that's seen better days and probably isn't getting many repeat customers. I didn't care. I pulled into the gravel lot, not bothering to check if there were any other cars around. The moment I turned off the engine, I felt the weight of everything hit me. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe, but I pushed it aside. I paid cash, didn't want to leave a trace. The room smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, the walls thin and stained, but I didn't care. It was empty, quiet, just what I needed. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't bother with the bed. Instead, I just sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, listening to the sound of it splattering against the pavement outside. I reached for my phone, staring at it for a long time before I powered it off. I didn't want to talk to Lauren, didn't want to hear her apologies or excuses. She probably didn't even care that I was gone. I was just a thing to her, something to deal with when it suited her. I told myself she was probably relieved, that she wouldn't have to deal with the guilt of hurting me, at least not for a while. Days passed in a blur. I found myself at the diner every morning, sitting at the same booth, ordering the same greasy breakfast. Bacon, eggs, toast. The kind of food that sticks to your ribs and makes you feel like shit later, but you eat it anyway. I was stuck in a loop. Breakfast, TV, staring at the ceiling stain shaped like Idaho. It wasn't even a full map of Idaho, just a vague smudge, but it seemed to sum up my life perfectly. A state of half-formed shapes, things that never quite made sense. One morning, as I was paying the check, I noticed a guy sitting at the counter, his suit wrinkled and his tie crooked. He had that look, the kind of guy who's been on the road too long. I sat across from him, and for a second I thought he might be a salesman. He didn't look at me right away, just stirred his coffee absent-mindedly. "Long day?" I asked, just to fill the silence. He glanced up, half smiling. "Something like that? I'm on my last leg here." He took a sip of his coffee. "You know how it is. Drive all day, meet the client, pitch the idea, sell the shit. But it's all just noise." I nodded. I knew exactly what he meant. He paused, then leaned in slightly. "You're here for the same reason, huh? You're just trying to escape?" I stared at him. There was something familiar about the way he said it. Like he wasn't just talking about the motel or the diner or the rain. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us before I finally asked, "You ever find it? Escape?" "Number. But you keep looking anyway," he said with a shrug. "I guess that's all you can do." He didn't push, didn't ask for more. But I couldn't stop myself. I found myself telling him everything, or at least the parts that felt safe to say out loud. My girlfriend Lauren, I overheard her on the phone the other day. She was talking to her dad. She said she can't stand me, that living with me is suffocating, called me pathetic. The man stared at me, eyebrows raised, like he'd heard this story 100 times before. "Sounds like you're the one who needs to escape, not her." "Yeah," I muttered, glancing at my coffee, pushing it around the cup. "But what if she's right? What if I'm just a burden to her?" He looked me over like he was weighing my words. "Ain't nothing wrong with being a burden if you're someone's burden, but if she's pushing you away, man, that's on her, not you." I stared at him, trying to read his face. There was a certain weight in his eyes, like he knew something about losing people. Maybe he wasn't so different after all. "Yeah," I said, but I didn't feel any lighter. The words weren't the answer I needed. There wasn't an answer, not yet. We both sat there, quietly, the rain tapping against the window, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I didn't know what to do with myself after I switched the phone off again. The silence in the room felt heavy, oppressive, like the air had turned thick and hard to breathe. I was supposed to go back to Spokane, back to Lauren, back to the apartment we shared, but the thought of facing her, of walking in that door, made my chest tight. I had heard everything. and I still couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a mistake just by trusting her. I didn't feel like talking to anyone. I didn't feel like talking to her. I didn't even feel like talking to Megan, though I could tell she'd been trying to reach me. Her texts had piled up on my phone. I looked at them, then turned the damn thing off again. But when I finally decided to check it, there was a message from my old friend David. It was short but unmistakable. "Lauren's on the news, man. She's begging people to help find you." I froze. The image of her, tear-streaked and desperate, flitted through my mind before I could even turn on the TV. I told myself I was being stupid, that it was just a misunderstanding, but the doubts crept back in. I flicked through the channels until I found the local news. Sure enough, there she was. Lauren, outside our duplex, pale and shaking, holding up a photo of us together, her voice cracking with each word. "Please, if anyone knows where Matt is, just tell me. I'm begging you. I don't know what happened. Please come home." My stomach churned. It didn't make sense. She'd called me pathetic, said she couldn't stand me, and now she was sobbing in front of a camera, asking for my return like nothing had ever happened. I watched her, not knowing whether to feel relief or fury. But it was real, wasn't it? Her heartbreak seemed so raw, so genuine. How could someone say that stuff about me, that stuff, and then stand in front of a camera, pleading for me to come back? My head spun. It didn't fit. Nothing fit. I needed to talk to someone. A knock at the door nearly made me jump out of my skin. I grabbed the nearest pillow and threw it against the bed in frustration, then slowly moved to the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it. "Hey, Matt," Megan said softly, standing on the threshold. Her eyes were tired, like she hadn't slept much either. "I figured you might need to talk." I stepped back, giving her space to enter. She didn't look at me right away, instead taking in the small room, familiar with its grimy carpet and peeling wallpaper. But she didn't seem to care about that. It was obvious that her focus was on me. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked, voice low but edged with concern. "Yeah," I replied, still a little stunned, though I had been watching her news segment on repeat in my mind for the last hour. "I saw it. She looks so upset, Megan. Like she really wants me back." "But do you want to go back to her?" Megan asked, crossing her arms and leaning against the small table by the window. Her tone wasn't judgmental, but I could tell she was watching me carefully. I started, but my voice faltered. Did I want to go back to her? Was it even possible? I couldn't get rid of the words she had said. Living with me was suffocating. I'm pathetic. But the image of her crying in front of a camera pulled at me. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe I misunderstood. I swallowed hard. She said I was suffocating her, that I was pathetic. Then she's out there on TV saying she wants me back. It doesn't make sense. What if it's just part of some show? What if she's just doing it for them? For whoever's watching? Megan stepped closer, her eyes softer now. "Matt, I get it, I really do. But you need to ask yourself, why would she be putting herself out there like that? On the news, crying, asking for you? People don't do that unless they care. And look at the facts. You disappeared without a word. You left her, and now she's in pain. It's not a show. She's hurting too." I rubbed my face with both hands, trying to process what she said. What if I'm wrong, Meg? What if she's still not telling me everything? "You'll never know if you keep running," she replied quietly. "You have to ask her, Matt. You can't stay in this hotel forever." I shook my head, biting my lip. I don't even know how to approach this. What do I say? What if she's just making it all up? Megan sighed, dropping her arms to her sides. "You'll have to figure that out. But you're not going to figure anything out by hiding. I'm not going to tell you what to do, Matt, but I'm here if you need me." I could tell she was done pushing, and a part of me resented her for that. But deep down, I knew she was right. There was no escaping this. Not really. The whole point of running was to escape the doubt, the pain. But all it did was make it worse. Because the longer I stayed here, the more questions piled up. It wasn't just about Lauren. It was about me. What was I really afraid of? If I go back, I could get hurt again. I could be suffocating her, just like she said. But maybe I wasn't the only one hurting. Maybe this wasn't just about me. I glanced at Megan, giving her a half-hearted nod. "All right, I'll think about it." She gave me a quick, supportive smile before leaving. And for the first time in days, the quiet of the motel room felt a little less suffocating, but not much. I stared at the ceiling for a while, wondering whether I was too late to go back, or if Lauren's tears meant something real this time. I stayed hidden inside the motel room as the news vans showed up outside. I didn't want anyone to find me, least of all the police. The last thing I needed was to talk to a bunch of strangers about why I disappeared. I didn't even know what I was supposed to say to Lauren yet, but as I sat there, I couldn't shake the image of her pleading on TV. Her eyes, wet with tears, her voice cracking as she called out for me. She looked like she'd been through hell, but how could I reconcile that with the conversation I'd overheard? Living with me was suffocating, pathetic. I didn't know what to think anymore. Hours passed before there was a knock at the door. I flinched, heart pounding in my chest. No way could I face her right now. No way could I explain why I'd run off without a word, why I didn't trust her after everything she'd said. The knock came again, louder this time, desperate. I stood, my feet feeling like lead, and walked to the door. Slowly I turned the knob and opened it just enough to see her standing there, drenched from the rain, holding a bag of my favorite pastries from the diner. Her eyes met mine, and her face crumbled. "Matt," she whispered, her voice raw. I thought you were dead." I froze. She was standing there, right in front of me, like she hadn't just destroyed everything between us with those words. She reached for me, arms trembling as she pulled me into a tight hug. I didn't move, barely breathing as her sobs filled my ears. "I'm sorry," she said between tears. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it." I pulled back just enough to look at her, feeling something stir inside me. Her hair was wet, strands clinging to her face, but the guilt and fear in her eyes was unmistakable. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to throw her out, to ask her how she could say those things to me and then show up at my door like this. But another part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe she hadn't meant it. Maybe it had been something else, something I didn't understand. "Lauren," I said quietly, "what was that on the phone? What were you talking about when you said I was suffocating you?" Her expression faltered. She hesitated, looking down at the pastries in her hand like they were the most interesting thing in the world. It wasn't about you, Matt. It was about work, about my boss, Grant." "Grant?" I repeated, narrowing my eyes. "The guy you've told me about? The one you said made your job unbearable?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes. He's controlling, manipulative. I've been dealing with it for months. That day when I was talking to my dad, I was venting. I was angry, and I said things I shouldn't have. I didn't know whether to believe her. The words she'd said to me, they'd felt so real, so cruel. But the way she was looking at me now, her face flushed from crying, made me want to believe she was telling the truth. I don't know what to believe anymore, Lauren," I said, my voice thick with frustration. "You said I was suffocating you. You called me pathetic." Her face twisted with guilt, and she dropped her gaze. "I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the pressure I felt from everything. Work, my boss, the stress. I was lashing out. I never meant to make you feel like that. I swear I didn't. I didn't know if I could keep doing this, if I could keep putting myself through this confusion. But standing there, watching her tremble in front of me, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. Not yet. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. "So, it wasn't about me? All that stuff you said? About how you couldn't stand being with me?" She shook her head quickly. No, it's not you, Matt. It was never about you. I was overwhelmed and I let everything out on the wrong person. I'm so sorry." I stared at her for a long moment, her eyes pleading with me, her body trembling from the cold. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to, but a part of me still felt sick, still felt betrayed by the things she'd said. "I don't know what to do with this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do whatever it takes to make it right," she said, her voice desperate. "Please, just give me a chance to prove it." I felt torn. Part of me wanted to walk away, to tell her I couldn't do this anymore, but another part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the hope that this wasn't the end of us. "All right," I said finally, my voice rough. "I'll come back with you. But we need to talk about this. We need to figure things out." Her face lit up, and she stepped forward, hugging me again, tighter this time. Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't return the hug right away. I was too confused, too conflicted. But I didn't push her away either. As much as I hated what she'd said, I knew we had to talk. We had to sort through all this mess. I'll clear things with the police and the news crews, she said, wiping her eyes. I'll explain everything. But, Matt, I really need you to come back with me. Please. I nodded, though part of me was still unsure. But for now, it felt like the only choice. I just hoped somehow this wouldn't end like it already felt. We didn't say much as we drove back to the duplex. The radio played softly in the background, but neither of us reached for the volume dial. I kept my eyes on the road, focused, trying not to think about the weight of the conversation we just had. My head was still spinning, trying to reconcile the image of her pleading on TV with the hurtful words she'd said to me. When we pulled into the parking spot, I noticed the lights on inside the duplex, a warm glow in the windows. I didn't feel relief. Instead, it was just another reminder of how much everything had changed, how different it felt. Lauren turned to me before I could open the door. I'm going to clear things with the police and the news crews, she said softly. I'll tell them the truth. I nodded. You should. They deserve that much. She gave me a small, tight smile before she stepped out of the car. I watched her walk inside, her shoulders hunched like she was carrying the weight of the entire world. She was doing it to make things right, I told myself. But something in me still felt like I wasn't sure who she really was anymore. I stayed outside for a while, just sitting there, trying to make sense of everything. I hadn't expected any of this. I certainly hadn't expected to hear her say those things, those words that I could never forget. The sound of the front door opening pulled me out of my thoughts. Lauren was back. She didn't say anything right away, just stood there, eyes red, but no more tears. It's done, she said finally, her voice still soft. I told them. They're going to get the real story now. She rubbed her hands together nervously. I'm sorry, Matt, for everything, for leaving you in the dark. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her it was fine, that I understood, but I didn't. I just nodded. It's okay, I said, though it felt like a lie. She tilted her head, searching my face. Are you sure? I mean, I know I hurt you, but I want to fix it. I really do. I don't want you to think that... Lauren, I cut in, holding up a hand. I took a deep breath. I just need some time. To think, to process. You've said some things that... I stopped myself, not wanting to spill out everything I was feeling. Not yet. She nodded, her lips pressing together, as if she were fighting back a whole new round of tears. I get it. I'll give you space. We stood there in silence, neither of us moving. It felt like the whole world had stopped just for us to figure out what came next. But I didn't know if I could figure it out yet. Lauren let out a shaky breath and wiped her eyes before giving me one last glance. I'll be in the kitchen if you want to talk. She turned and walked inside, her footsteps slow, hesitant. I stood there for a moment longer, staring at the door. The truth was, I didn't know if I could forgive her. But I also didn't know if I could walk away from her either. She was still Lauren, the woman I thought I knew. When I finally went inside, it felt different. The air felt heavier, colder. Lauren was already at the counter, running her fingers through her hair, looking at something on her phone. I didn't say anything at first, just watched her, wondering how we got here. Matt, she said after a moment, not looking up, I know things are messed up, but I want to make it right. I just need you to trust me again. I didn't know how to respond to that. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But the doubt was still there, like a stone lodged in my chest. Every time I thought about the things she'd said, the way she'd made me feel, it felt impossible to just let go of it. But I also knew that if I didn't try to rebuild some trust, we'd never move forward. I don't know how, Lauren, I said quietly, finally letting the frustration slip out. How do I trust you again after everything? She turned then, finally meeting my gaze. I don't know either, she said, her voice small. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I love you, Matt. I really do. My heart twisted, but I couldn't make myself say it back. Not yet. Can we just take a day? I asked, trying to push the heavy silence away. A day to just breathe without thinking about all this? Lauren's expression softened. I'd like that, a lot. We spent the rest of the day like that, in quiet companionship, as if we were trying to remember who we were before everything got messed up. We went to the farmer's market in the afternoon, grabbed some fresh flowers, and picked out fruit for a simple dinner. The rain had let up, and the sky had turned a soft pink with the setting sun. It wasn't perfect, not by any means, but it was a start. And for the first time in days, I didn't feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. Later, we picked up takeout from a place we used to visit when things were good between us. We sat in front of the TV, joking about not telling anyone the real story of my disappearance. She posted a picture of us on social media, and her followers flooded in with messages of concern and love. For a moment, it almost felt like things were normal again, like the storm had passed. I couldn't help but think, though, that the cracks were still there, that maybe things wouldn't stay this way for long. But I wanted to believe that we could make it work. Maybe it would take time, but for tonight, I would let myself believe it. Maybe. The days after Lauren's explanation felt like I was floating in a fog, but I didn't know how to navigate it. Things seemed okay. She was here, she was trying, and I was trying too. But somewhere underneath it all, a pit was growing in my stomach. Lauren was changing again, subtle but noticeable. Late nights, the kind of silence that used to feel comfortable between us, now felt off. She was always on her phone, staring at it like it held all the answers. And when I'd ask what was up, she'd give me that vague, just work stuff response, the one that didn't make me feel any better. It started with the gym, more frequent visits, longer sessions. She didn't invite me to join anymore, like she had before. That wasn't so strange. She'd always been active, but it was like everything else was shifting around it. I wasn't wrong, was I? I'd been in this relationship long enough to feel when something wasn't right. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I had to remind myself over and over again, don't jump, don't jump. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore. A friend of mine, Mark, who I'd barely kept in touch with, sent me a screenshot. It was from Lauren's social media story, a photo of her in a dress I recognized. It was the dress she'd bought for our anniversary, the one I hadn't seen her wear yet. But what stopped me cold was the man in the background, Grant. The man she'd told me was her horrible boss was standing next to her, smiling, looking comfortable. Too comfortable, like they'd known each other for far longer than I was ever told. I felt my hands go clammy. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to storm over there and demand an explanation, but I didn't. I couldn't. I just stared at the screen, trying to force my mind to make sense of it, but nothing did. I had to talk to her. I had to confront her. That night, after I'd let the confusion stew for hours, I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I sat her down in the living room, the smell of takeout still lingering in the air between us, and I just asked, "Lauren, what's going on with you?" She blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady but guarded. I didn't let it slide. "The dress, the one you wore in the story, the one from our anniversary. It's funny, because I know you said you were working late that night. But you're not just wearing the dress. You're with Grant, the guy you said was a problem." Lauren's face went pale, and for a moment, I saw panic flash in her eyes, but she quickly masked it, the same way she always did when she was caught off guard. "Matt, she began, but I cut her off. "Don't lie to me," I said, voice tight. "Don't give me the work excuse. You lied about where you were. You lied to me about who you were with." Her shoulders slumped, and she sighed deeply. "It wasn't like that." I didn't buy it. "Then what was it like, Lauren? Tell me." She met my gaze, her lips pressed tightly together before she finally spoke. "I went to Grant's birthday party that night. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to hurt you." I felt the floor beneath me shift. "So you lied to me, and you went to his birthday party with him, knowing how I feel about him? What were you trying to protect, Lauren? Me or yourself?" "Both," she admitted quietly. "I didn't want you to think it was anything more than it was. But I was scared, Matt. Scared of everything. Scared of being trapped." "Trapped?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think I'm trapping you?" "No," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I think I was trapping myself. I've been scared for a long time. Scared of what we're becoming. I felt like I was losing myself. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore." I let out a bitter laugh. "So, you lied. You avoided the truth because you were scared, and you hurt me in the process?" She shook her head, her eyes filled with regret. I'm sorry, Matt. I really am. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never wanted to make you feel like you weren't enough. Then why didn't you talk to me about it? I asked, my voice rising despite myself. Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling? Why didn't you just tell me you were scared? I thought I could fix it on my own, she said softly, her voice shaking. But I couldn't. And the more I kept it inside, the more I shut you out, the worse it got. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how to ask for help. I rubbed my temples, feeling a dull ache starting to spread across my forehead. So, what now? What happens now, Lauren? I don't know, she said, her voice breaking. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not. I couldn't breathe. You've been pretending this whole time, haven't you? She nodded slowly. Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know what else to do. I felt like I was drowning in her apology, in the guilt she wore so well. And as much as I wanted to fight for this, for us, I felt it slipping away from me, no matter how tightly I held on. We sat there for a while, the weight of her confession sinking into the space between us. Neither of us knew how to move forward. I couldn't shake the words Lauren had said. I was scared, and everything else, the lies, the doubt, the things I overheard that night. They kept echoing in my head. She wanted to make it right, but how could we make it right when everything felt so wrong? A week had passed since that night in the motel. A week of trying to get back to some version of normal, but the cracks were too deep. I told myself over and over again that I wasn't jumping to conclusions. But every time Lauren got up to leave or spent a little too long on her phone, a pit formed in my stomach. I wanted to trust her, I really did, but she was changing again, and I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. Tonight, she had a work event she said she couldn't skip. But I'd been here before. I'd heard that excuse too many times, and the feeling in my gut told me something wasn't right. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. A part of me hated that I was doing it, but the other part, the one that had been lied to before, couldn't stop. There it was. Another social media story, this time from the bar, the one she'd lied about. She said she was working late, but in the background was Grant, the boss she supposedly hated. The same Grant who had supposedly made her miserable for months. And there she was, smiling, wearing the anniversary dress I'd bought her. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't just let this slide. Not again. When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand. She didn't notice the tension in the room at first, but then she saw my face, the way I was holding myself, and the way my hands clenched the phone. She froze. What's wrong? I didn't look up. The bar, I said, flat. The one you said you were working late for? It's funny, because I see you there with Grant, the guy you told me was making your life hell. What's going on, Lauren? She took a step back, her face pale. Matt, Stop lying, Lauren. I've had enough. I need to know why you keep lying to me. About him, about working late, about everything. Just tell me the truth. She swallowed, her eyes flickering to the phone in my hand. Matt, it wasn't what you think. You said you were working late, I interrupted, voice rising despite myself. You told me you couldn't make it home because of work, but you were at a bar with him? Why? Why couldn't you just tell me? Her eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. Instead, she sat down across from me, her shoulders slumped, the weight of the moment pressing her down. I didn't want to hurt you, she said quietly. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to say it. I felt like I was suffocating. Say what? The truth, she said. She wiped her eyes and let out a shaky breath. The night at the bar was Grant's birthday. I wasn't just there for a drink. I was there because I thought I could handle it. I thought maybe I could finally deal with everything I've been holding in. About work, about you, about us. I shook my head, not understanding. What do you mean about us? She hesitated, her voice softening. I didn't know how to say it, but I've been feeling trapped, Matt. Trapped by everything. By my job, by my insecurities. And yes, by you too. I thought maybe if I could have a night where I wasn't thinking about all of it, about everything, it would help. I stared at her, my mind racing. So, what? You go out with your boss, lie to me about where you are, and that makes it better? That's how you deal with feeling trapped? No, she said quickly, shaking her head. It wasn't like that. It was just a moment. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. I was just trying to escape for a little while. I was numb, my head spinning. So, you think going to a bar with the guy who's been making your job unbearable is the way to fix it? Her lips trembled. No, Matt, I did think it was a mistake. I do think it was, but it wasn't about him. It was about me trying to get some space, trying to figure out what I wanted. And I lied about it because I was afraid of you seeing it as something else. I laughed bitterly, the sound escaping before I could stop it. You've been lying to me this whole time because you're afraid of how I'd see you. She nodded, her voice small. Yes, and I'm sorry. I didn't know how to deal with everything. And when I saw how hurt you were that day, I thought I could fix it by pretending everything was okay. I stood up, pacing the small living room. I didn't know what to do with my hands, my thoughts, anything. And this is how you fix it? By lying more? By telling me I'm suffocating you and then showing up here acting like nothing happened? She stood up too, her voice desperate. Matt, I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to make you feel like you were trapping me. I didn't know how to handle everything that was building up inside me. The pressure, the fear, the uncertainty. I turned to face her, my eyes blazing. And now? What happens now, Lauren? You've lied to me over and over, and I don't know what's real anymore. You've made me feel like I'm not enough, and I don't even know who you are anymore. She stepped forward, reaching for me. I'm still the same person, Matt. I want to be. I've been scared of what's happening between us. But I love you. I really do. I stepped back, shaking my head. I don't know if I can believe that anymore. She took a shaky breath, her eyes pleading with me. Please, don't walk away. Please don't give up on us. I couldn't answer right away. The words felt like they were stuck in my throat. I wanted to tell her that we could work through this, that we could get back to a place of trust. But it didn't feel like that anymore. The truth was, I wasn't sure we could come back from this. Maybe we were too far gone, and I didn't know if I could keep fighting when she wasn't being honest with me. We stood there, both of us caught in the same painful silence. Lauren had been quiet for days, and it felt like we were living in the same space but on opposite sides of a wall. She'd come home from her meetings, sit at the kitchen table, and scroll through her phone. I'd watch her, but there was no point in asking what was going on anymore. I knew she wasn't fine, and neither was I. I tried to keep things normal. I still made dinner sometimes, and we'd talk about what to watch on TV. But it wasn't the same. It felt like we were just going through the motions. She was so withdrawn, always lost in her thoughts, and it was starting to get to me. I could see it on her face, the quiet frustration. But I was too afraid to ask, too afraid that the next lie would be the one that broke me for good. The job situation had gone from bad to worse. Lauren had quit, just like she said she would. I thought it would be a relief for her, but now she was spending hours on the couch, applying to job after job, getting rejection after rejection. Her phone had become her lifeline, but also the cause of her anxiety. I watched her go through the same motions, checking the emails, deleting the ones that didn't go anywhere, and trying not to show it, but the defeat was there, in her shoulders, in the lines of her face. Every rejection seemed to chip away at her more, and I felt guilty. I was the reason she'd quit her job, the reason she was in this mess. I had told her to do it. I'd told her to leave, to get away from Grant. I should have known the toll it would take on her career, on her self-worth. One night, after yet another rejection, I found her sitting in the kitchen, staring at the empty coffee cup in front of her, hands wrapped around it like she was trying to hold on to something. I stood in the doorway for a while, unsure if I should say something. I didn't want to make it worse, but it was already bad enough. Lauren, my voice felt hollow, like I wasn't even sure what to ask. She didn't look up at first, just stared at the table. When she did look up, there was a weariness in her eyes, something I hadn't seen in her before. She looked broken. Matt, she started, voice shaky. I'm not the same person anymore. I've lost who I am. I don't know who I am without this job, without everything. I couldn't speak. She was right. I had seen it, but I couldn't say it. I thought I could do this, thought I could get us back to what we had, she continued, her voice quieter now. But it's not working, It's like we're both just feeding into each other's worst sides, the insecurity, the doubt, the fear. It's toxic. It hurt to hear her say it, but deep down, I knew she was right. I felt it too. We couldn't seem to stop pushing each other into corners, pushing each other into places we didn't want to be. Her stress about the job, my doubts about the relationship, it was all just spiraling. "I'm not happy, Matt," she whispered, the words hanging between us like a weight. "And I don't think I can be with you anymore. I can't keep doing this. I need to figure out who I am without you, without this." I didn't know what to say to that. I wanted to fight for us. I wanted to scream that we could fix this, that we could find a way back. But I knew, in my heart, that if I kept holding on to something that wasn't working, I was just going to hurt us both more. The silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. "Okay," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "If you think this is what you need, Lauren, I can't stop you." Her eyes flickered with something, maybe relief, maybe regret, but she didn't say anything else. She just stood up slowly and walked to the bedroom, moving with a quiet grace that seemed to reflect everything that was being left unsaid. The next morning, when I woke up, Lauren was gone. I didn't hear her leave, didn't see her pack. It was all so quiet, too quiet. But when I walked into the living room, I saw the pile of boxes by the door, her things neatly packed away, everything she'd taken. And there, on the coffee table, was the framed photo of us, the one we took at the beach that day, when we thought everything was perfect. She had taken that photo with her, just like she said she would, to remember the good parts. And as much as I hated that it ended like this, I couldn't help but feel that it was the only way it could. We'd tried, but we were lost. We couldn't find our way back to each other, and maybe, just maybe, that was okay. I watched the sun creep through the curtains and realized that the duplex felt emptier without her. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew it would be different. The mailbox, the one she'd fixed while I was gone, was repaired. It looked new. A small, insignificant thing that reminded me of everything she cared about. I stood there for a moment, just looking at it, remembering how it all started with a single overheard conversation, how everything had changed since that night. Some relationships aren't meant to last, even when the love is real, and as Lauren's car disappeared down the street, I realized that was the only truth I had left. The next few days felt like I was living in a slow-motion version of a bad dream. Lauren had gotten quiet again, but this time, it wasn't the kind of quiet that came with comfort. It was the kind of quiet that made the air in the duplex feel thick, like every word we spoke hung in the balance. Her job situation had become unbearable. She'd resigned from work after everything that happened with Grant, and it hadn't helped. Every rejection letter, every failed interview chipped away at her. I could see it in her face, how she'd sink deeper into herself every time she opened her inbox. I kept telling myself it wasn't my fault, but the guilt gnawed at me. She wasn't this person. I didn't know what she was becoming, and it made me question everything. And then it happened. She'd come home late again, smelling faintly of wine and something else I couldn't quite place. She'd been avoiding me more, spending her time locked away in the guest room or out running errands. She'd barely talked to me all evening. When she finally walked into the living room, I noticed the look in her eyes. It wasn't just tiredness, it was something else. She looked like she'd been holding herself together, but just barely. "I got another rejection," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Matt." I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell her everything would be okay, but I didn't know if I believed it. Instead, I asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I'm thinking about leaving Spokane for a while," she said, shifting uncomfortably. "I don't know if I'm cut out for all of this anymore." I could hear the finality in her voice. She didn't just mean the job. She meant everything. I let out a breath, frustrated but trying to keep my voice steady. "Lauren, I stopped myself, unsure of how to phrase it. "This whole thing, it's tearing us apart. We're both drowning, and I don't know how to pull us back up. I don't know if it's worth saving anymore." Her eyes flickered, and I saw the pain there, but also something else, a resignation. "Maybe we're not meant to be together, Matt. Maybe we're just not good for each other." The words stung, sharper than anything she'd said before. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me, like everything I'd tried to hold on to was slipping through my fingers. "You want to leave?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. "You really want to walk away from us?" She bit her lip, glancing down at her hands before meeting my eyes again. I don't know who I am anymore, Matt. I've lost myself. I've been pretending and I can't do it anymore. I think I need space. I need time to figure things out on my own. Without you, without anyone else, just me. I stood there, trying to process her words, trying to find something to say, something that would stop this from happening, but I couldn't. I knew she was right. We had fed into each other's worst insecurities, the tension, the lies, the broken trust. It had all built up to this. I don't want to let you go, I said, my voice breaking, but I don't know if we can keep doing this either. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a sadness I couldn't fix. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Matt. I need to go. I need to find myself again before I lose everything. I don't want to hurt you anymore. I stood still, watching as she moved quietly through the apartment, packing a few things into a suitcase. She didn't say much, just the occasional apology, as if everything that had built up between us could be taken away with a few words. I could feel the finality of it. I could see the end of something I had once believed was unbreakable. When she was done, she stood at the door, suitcase in hand. She looked back at me once, as if searching for something, maybe for me to stop her, maybe for some kind of reassurance that we could fix it. But I couldn't give her that. Take care of yourself, Lauren, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, eyes glistening with unshed tears. I will. I'll figure it out. I promise. And with that, she stepped out. The door clicked shut behind her, and I stood there in the silence, the weight of everything pressing down on me. The apartment felt emptier now, the absence of her presence more pronounced. I walked over to the spot where we had kept our things together, but it was just a hollow space now. A space filled with questions I didn't have answers to. I glanced at the framed photo of us, the one she had taken with her, the last reminder of the good parts. I didn't know if I could ever look at it the same way again. I stood by the window for a long time, watching the empty parking space where her car had once been. The rain had started again, falling softly, but it felt like the storm inside me had finally passed. I didn't know if I'd ever find peace with all of this. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. Sometimes love isn't enough to hold something together. And maybe that's okay. The day Lauren moved out, the silence in the duplex was suffocating. I watched her pack her things quietly, taking only what she needed, leaving behind the rest. A few books, a sweater she loved, and that one framed photo of us from the trip to the beach. She placed it on the counter before walking out with her suitcase, a last piece of her life here with me, and I stood by the window, watching as her car pulled away. It was a slow departure, and it felt like time had slowed down with her. The rain had started up again, light and steady, the kind that soaked into everything without mercy. The emptiness that settled into the duplex wasn't just physical, it was everything. The air, the space between where she had been and where I stood now. It felt hollow. I felt hollow. I glanced at the mailbox she'd fixed, the one that had sat crooked for months, and I couldn't help but notice how neat it looked now. A small thing, but it felt like one last little reminder that she had cared. In the middle of all the chaos, she had tried, even when we couldn't find a way to fix what had been broken. I looked down at the floor, the space where she used to stand, where we used to stand together. It felt like an entire lifetime ago. I hadn't realized how much I had been holding on until it all unraveled in front of me. I thought it was love that held us together, but it wasn't. It was trust. And trust had been stripped away by silence, by lies, by things left unsaid. I thought about the conversation I'd overheard, how one single moment spiraled into everything that followed. It wasn't just a few words spoken in anger. It was the lack of communication, the inability to face the truth in front of us. We'd danced around it for too long, and I'd been too scared to ask the right questions. Now she was gone, and I was left with the wreckage of us, and a realization that some things just aren't meant to last. I stood there for what felt like hours, watching the rain blur the world outside, unable to move. The thought of her gone, really gone, hit harder than I expected. I wanted to call her, to ask her to come back. I wanted to apologize, but for what? For trying too hard? For not understanding sooner? For staying when it wasn't enough? I didn't know. When I finally pulled myself away from the window, I turned off the lights and sat on the couch. The darkness in the apartment seemed to press in on me, suffocating. I wanted to let myself feel angry, but I didn't. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt exhausted, like the weight of everything had finally crushed me. I thought about what Megan had said the other night, how maybe I misunderstood everything. But I didn't think I did. Lauren had lied, and I'd let it happen, let the cracks grow deeper until they shattered everything between us. I leaned back and looked at the photo Lauren had left on the counter, the last piece of us. The last reminder that, once upon a time, we had been happy. I wasn't sure if I could ever look at it again, but for now, I just stared at it, not knowing what to feel. The front door opened and closed softly, a quiet click. I didn't need to look up. I knew it was her. I could feel her presence before I heard the footsteps behind me. She stopped a few feet away, waiting for me to say something, but I didn't know what to say anymore. She cleared her throat. "I'll be back tomorrow to pick up the rest of my stuff." I nodded. That was all we had left, picking up the pieces of what we once had. But even the act of packing things away seemed pointless now. What was left to salvage? "Okay," I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. We stood there for a moment, not knowing what to do, what to say. "Goodbye, Matt," she whispered. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just nodded again, not trusting myself to speak. The door clicked again, the sound so final that it might as well have been a door closing for good. I stayed where I was, staring at the photo of us, the empty apartment echoing with the sound of her footsteps fading away.